everyone. We should get some more people in here, but hi to everyone on Zoom. My name is Jody Souza, and I'm your Education and Events Director here at SCORE. We have a really good panel, I think, today, as you can see from those that are on the panel. And TJ Roberts is going to be moderating it for us. She's with PRMG Mortgage, but we've got Myron von Reisfeld here, who's a past SCORE president. We've got Daryl Monda. We have Diane Fletcher with Old Republic Title, and Ron Ricard, who is a 1031 expert. So they're going to talk to you about freeing up inventory. How do you find it? How do you help them move it out of state and make more money? And how do you avoid taxes? Because I think that's the other piece of it. Or how do you use 1031 to do that? So I'm going to introduce TJ Roberts here. So welcome, TJ, and thank you, everyone.
Crowd goes wild. Hi guys, I know you'd have to turn down your volume because I'm the quiet one in the bunch, so you'll probably hear me fairly well. So welcome to our freeing inventory. I want you guys to know that this, if you take and run with this, you can make a lot of money, and I think some people would like to be able to have some more homes to sell. So we're going to go ahead and start. We're going to talk about how we started this process. So how to create inventory to sell for you guys, you real estate agents out there. Why do you need it? We need inventory. Sellers don't necessarily need a replacement property. That's one of the reasons people aren't selling. They're afraid they can't find something to buy. Property management laws have gotten very stringent in our area. And that's an incentive, especially if they own a condo that they're renting, to get that for that first time home buyer into the market. Rent increases and just cause eviction are causing a lot of heartburn for people who own rental properties in our area. COVID and non-payment of rents and delays on evictions have caused a lot of heartache for property owners. And top of the market, in a raising interest rate market, we're going to have less buyers who qualify. So the sooner you get it on the market, the better. Ability to defer capital gains through a 1031 exchange. We're going to talk about that as well. How? Using your title company resources to find rental properties. Establish a drip campaign for these potential sellers. Contact the occupants in the rental market to help them become buyers as well. There's a twofold for you. Have solutions for the money they will earn, and we're going to give you some solutions for that. Appeal to the following in market. Greed, top of market. I know greed's always a good motivator. Less buyers will qualify at a higher rate. So of course, you're going to have a little bit less of a price. Ease of removing difficult tenant or rental rules in California. Provide contacts in out-of-state markets for purchase. We're seeing a lot of that. And provide assistance in 1031 information exchange. I wanted to show you some examples. So here's an example of a title report. And you can see in the highlight example of the title report of rental properties. The highlighted areas that I'm showing are net values they have after paying the mortgage currently on their property and how we can reinvest that money going forward. These slides will be available for all of you afterwards, so you can go through them and you'll have everybody's contact information as well. But there's a lot of money out there to be invested in more real estate and to get into the market for inventory. I wanted to break down one example for you, just so that I get you excited. So I pulled this property. I'm a Campbellonian. So I pulled this property in Campbell, has all of their information in there. They are a local owner and he owns a couple of properties, but no mortgage on this property. He's got 3 to 3.78 million in equity in one home. He has a second home as well on Yellowbird, and that one has another big chunk of equity. And again, both of these are rentals. This is information that is available through title for you for free. And Diane's going to talk a little bit about that when we get to her section and how you can get this information. Let's get some inventory out there. So Diane, we're going to go ahead and move over to you if you are ready. Talk a little bit. I don't know if you can see the slide, my dear. Yes?
Yes, I can. Yes, that is a slide of the ProFarm website, which is a great farming tool for you. If you don't have an account, we're happy to help you set one up. But this is essentially where you're going to go. There's many different options, but this is where you would start, TJ.
Absolutely.
Okay, here we have a slide of an out of state farm and alphabetizing it. So you're going to choose maybe a property owner that's 3,000 miles away. For instance, in Massachusetts, I think we had an example of that. Now, these are people that may not be flying back and forth to California as often as some of the other folks that live closer. So they really need to know from you what is going on in the market.
So
mhm.
along that lines, we brainstormed over this, having the power to be able to, as a realtor, as a professional in this market, provide a service to your owner of the property to go in and do an inspection for them. And we're going to talk a little bit about what you can provide to them since they are out of state and see how the property's faring. That can lead into them being able to re-rent it, or it can lead into them selling it and creating inventory.
Right.
Go ahead, Hen.
Okay, I think the next slide is, I can't see this, TJ, but there was going to be one that was a net sheet. There we go.
There we go.
So this is just showing a net sheet of a property owner, and you're going to take a look at what's going on. You would be the expert, as far as listing price and things like that. But what's going on? Do they have loans? Is there anything of interest to note about the property owner? And one way you can find out is using a program such as ProFarm for this information.
And this information is available to you free. To be able to have the information of what is public record, have the information of what type of value is around assessed, you can get that through your title services or another service to be able to get that information to create those lists and target your market. It's a powerful tool that everybody should be using.
Yes, and I think we also had a slide up there of you can also farm absentee owners. So they might be homeowners that live locally. They're not out of state, but the out of state owners is something you may want to really look at. And if you're using third-party programs such as ProFarm, you can also purchase, other information that may help you along the lines of marketing to these people. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
So the ways to market to these people are varied in some, and they're going to be based on how you do your business. But we had a creative idea that Daryl is going to speak to. How do we get that rental listing? And would a rental inspection work? So we're going to talk with Daryl. It's your turn, Daryl. Talk a little bit about your
Good morning,
services.
everybody. So what we're going to talk about here is providing a virtual tour. A virtual tour basically is starts with the photography. It could go into videography, it could go into an aerial, and it could go into a floor plan. So it's a multi-purpose visual or digital imaging product that you can completely walk through and see every aspect of the property. We have been in business for about 25 years now. We were the first company that started a virtual tour concept. And during the pandemic, we sold multiple homes. People from all over the country would look at our virtual tours by doing a search engine into one of our products called Home Debut. And you could actually go in and see all of the aspects of the property. And it was really pretty exciting because the agent would get a phone call and says, hey, I saw this $3.5 million property in Los Gatos. I want to buy it. And
it's a pretty amazing thing to be able to use these tools to digitally render as well. So what we're looking at is how you can use an inspection as a realtor, going in and doing an inspection for your seller and doing the photography for it, using the digital renderings. And you can do one of two things with it. You could take it so that if they're going to rent it again, you can remove all the furniture. And as the guise of you're being the real estate expert, you go in and you inspect the property, you provide this report and earn a fee from the consumer who owns the property and have this report for them. They can use those renderings for re-renting the property if they have a troubled tenant, Or you can use them as the basis of starting the sale of that property when you're getting ready to go and not have the delay of them losing rental income or let their lease run out. So you have the time and you're already ahead of the market. So I have the first image there we have is of a empty space.
Okay, what we have found in the market here in Santa Clara County or Silicon Valley is that there are a lot of rentals, and the renters have actually have some pretty rough looking furniture, rough looking things inside of that rental. And the owner wants to sell it. So we take photos, we can digitally clean the photos, and then we can decide what kind of furniture we want to put back in. And you got a second slide here. This is the same picture, but with been cleaned, and we've now put the new furniture back in, so you can see how beautiful it looks. And in the case of this photo and the cleaning photo, that place sold very, very quickly. It's very appealing.
And the next photo is a before and after side by side,
Right.
digitally cleaned with, of course, there's nice furniture in here, but a rental is not necessarily going to have the highest quality furniture. There may be a bit of clutter,
Quite
those-
a bit usually.
those types of things. But you're ahead of the game because not only have you now provided a service to that person who's going to be your seller when you're selling their property, but you've also provided the ability for them to re-rent the property if they decide to hold on for a little bit longer, but you've kept that connection to build for future inventory. And you have that inspection quality done, which as real estate professionals, it's very important that you have that in your a quiver in your arrow or arrow in your quiver. So the digital cleaning is phenomenal. For those of you who haven't spent much time on looking at the information that they have on Daryl's website, please look at some of the examples they have. It is incredible the services that they can provide to help you get some more inventory. All right. Thank you so much, Daryl. So you need to find some strategic partners in the areas they may want to purchase. So out of state lending is very popular right now. Understand the ins and outs of 1031 exchanges, and we're going to go through that a little bit too. And be a source for your client. If you are the resource, if you are the one they come to, think of how much business you can get going forward. All right, what do you do with the equity? What would you do with $3 million in equity? Well, people are afraid to sell because taxes and stuff too, right? So let's talk a little bit about real estate investing and for financial security. And that is all yours, Myron.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what you do with the money or what you do with your clients that have all this money. And what I will start by saying is if you aren't talking to your clients that you've sold property to over the last 10, 15, 20 years, and they've owned that property for a while, and it's a rental sitting here in Silicon Valley, if you are not talking to them about the possibility of how they can increase their net worth and their cash flow by taking that asset and repurposing it into another place or another marketplace, if you're not doing that, somebody else is, and you'll lose your client. So I will tell you, you need to do that because the market is really hot across this country. And we in Silicon Valley have been living in this little hard shell. We live in it. We think everything's kind of like this. When you take that $3 million from Campbell and you move that to a place like Nashville, Tennessee, or Raleigh, North Carolina, I will tell you $3 million in Raleigh, North Carolina will probably buy you about a 30-unit apartment building that would do really, really well. And Raleigh, for example, is a really booming market. It is kind of like the next Silicon Valley on the East Coast. So if you take and do some research and look around, and it's not just Raleigh, Jacksonville, Florida, Nashville, Tennessee, I can list probably 10 different areas that are fantastic opportunities for your clients to be looking at and expanding their horizons into other areas. One of the first things we start with everybody is that you got to start and understand the terminology when you're looking at investment property. So on the slide there, we have all the different, I can't read them, but
Would you like me to read them for
but
you?
you can
Yeah,
read
let me go
them,
ahead
but
because I have them on a smaller
but
screen.
they're
so-
pretty basic, but you need to know those and you need to know how to calculate these things. And so if you don't, I won't go into the process of teaching you the calculations, but I am available if someone wants to call me later and have a one-on-one off camera. I'm happy to help guide you through that process so that you can do better with your clients and really perform. And if you get those $3 million houses out, and she's right, it frees up inventory here, but it gives you a client for life because you really are helping them expand and grow their net worth. So go ahead and you can read
Yeah,
through this
so
pretty quickly.
some of the things that you're going to need to know to help them to better serve your clients are vacancy factor, income loss from vacancies. Every property has a vacancy factor. Some are larger than others, and that will impact the investment. Net operating income. The NOI equals all revenue from the property minus all reasonable necessary operating expenses. Cash flow, the cash flow left over after all expenses and reserves are deducted. Cap rate, the one that everybody drops as a word, everybody knows what it means, but they usually don't, is the rate of
And most, nobody
return.
knows how to calculate it.
Exactly. It's the rate of return on the real estate investment expressed as percentages of rate on return on the investment. This metric is used to estimate the investor's potential return on his or her investment. If you could learn one thing when you're trying to help people become investors in multi-properties, this would be the thing you would want to learn. Cash on cash return is the calculation of the cash income earned and the cash investment in the property. And of course, depreciation, we've all heard it, but it can impact you. Depreciation is referred to as the non-cash expense in real estate terms. Depreciation is defined as the reduction of the recorded cost of fixed asset in a systematic manner until the value of the asset becomes zero or negligible, usually for income tax purposes.
And that is a free gift from the federal government. One of
I
the few
know.
things they will give you, at least currently so far.
And as a lender, I love to see depreciation because I consider that income. All right.
this
Here's
is-
an example.
Yeah, this is an example of a property. So I put up, this is my own. So I use one I can speak very highly of. This is a property that I owned in Santa Clara. We sold it towards the end of 2018. An unsolicited offer came in on it. We were never planning on selling that, at least at that point in time. I got an offer at $1,530,000 on it. I took that property and I exchanged it into property in North Carolina, into the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area. I bought 5 properties with that one property. My net income or my gross income on my Santa Clara property was $5,850 a month at the time.
Did you want that slide?
No, not yet. Back
Oh,
up
yeah,
just one
okay.
second. Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
And so I was bringing in $5,850 a month on my $1,530,000 investment. I took that, bought those, a 4-plex, a triplex, and 3 duplexes in North Carolina. My income went from $5,850 to just under $11,000 a month. Next slide. The cool part about this is the agent that brought the buyer in and bought this from me just relisted that property for his client this year, sold it in January. And he listed it at $1,495,000, which I thought was interesting because that was less than what he paid for me for it. But it is California. We do that crazy market. So they ended up selling it at $1,700,000. So this is about 2.5, almost 3 years from the time that I sold that to him. That property sold for $1,700,000, and the rents during that period of time that guy owned it had actually dropped by $50. So he was only bringing in $5,800 a month. And that's all on MLS. You can pull it up. It's on Manchester in Santa Clara. You can see the history of that particular property. On the other side are my properties of what I did and what happened. And so you can see, I can't see the top number. I think it was $90,000, I think, or something.
So a gross annual income on the Santa Clara duplex was $70,002 with gross annual expenses of $35,000. So a net operating income of $35,200.
Yes. Okay. And then on mine, on the other side, so what's happened in North Carolina, just like in Silicon Valley, market's gone nuts. Okay. When I bought those properties in North Carolina, I had done my research for a year or so before I even got into the market. I was flying out there looking at properties. We bought a little condo just as kind of like a tester to see if we really wanted to do this thing. And so the condo started taking off, doing well. I said, yep, we got to do more over there. So these properties, though, when I bought them, I was buying them with no anticipation of any appreciation. Literally, it was not in my calculations. I do use appreciation in North Carolina now because it's too hard to ignore. You cannot ignore when you're getting 25, 30% appreciation anymore. And you have the influx of people coming to that area of the country in masses, 100 people a day are moving into those areas. So it is going to change the metrics of their real estate market. And they're feeling all the growing pains that we had in the 70s and 80s. They're all the same complaints that we had back then. They have them all there now. And so the beautiful part about that is the same investment by me doing that. And that's what the slide in the middle, the numbers in the middle show, is how my net worth grew by making that one change. Now, I would have still been fine owning the place in Manchester and Santa Clara for if I owned it today. Wouldn't hurt me. It's not going to bother me. I'm making money. It's okay. Hey, it's fine. But I greatly increased my net worth and my cash flow by freeing up that equity here and taking it somewhere else. And so this is a story for you to take to all of your clients, to all of your customers, and let them know how it can work, how it will work. They do need to do your homework. There are different pitfalls in investing in different states and different areas. I would tell you, you could probably reduplicate this story even here in California. You just have to get outside the Bay Area. You got to get outside of these really high cost areas. We all have a golden parachute if we've owned property here for any period of time. And that golden parachute will really help you set you up later off in your life when you're ready to kind of retire and slow down. I had a conversation with my wife before because she worries about money all the time, no matter what. It's like, we could have $5 million and she said, we need 10. It's like, okay, well, no, we're good. We're good. The simple story is, I tell this to my friends and my wife, I go, I could spend every penny that I have in savings today, have it all go away today. And next month, first of the month, it's all coming right back in. So that's what passive income does. That's the power of it. All of you, every realtor that's selling real estate should own real estate and should own passive income. If you do, you will, your own life and your own process of going through things in life and not worrying about every deal, because you got to have the thing when you have that extra cash flow coming in, is the lifesaver for you. And so I was fortunate. I practiced what I preached. I started doing it from day one. We've grown a great little portfolio of properties, and it's done really well. I can help you all. I'm happy to talk to you all and help you that. This is another example. This was a property that I sold in Sanford, North Carolina. So I'm licensed both in California and North Carolina. But this particular property, my client rocked it on this. Sanford's a little tiny town, about 45 minutes outside of Raleigh. But boy, this property now is on fire because Sanford is one of the places where some of the companies are relocating to, and the market is just booming. He bought a fourplex and 2 duplexes for $393,000. They've doubled in value in 2 years. And so there are, and there are other areas that are like this. It's not just there. So if you kind of look around and do your research, you'll find these things, and your clients will love you for it. I mean, this is a great property there. When I sold it to him, I think the rents were $580 or something. He's now getting $850 a month for rents on those duplexes that I sold.
That's
him there.
really good, since you can't read the screen from there. That's a good memory.
Well, it's kind of committed to memory because I've done this a lot, but and I can tell you, I have a list of other stories, other clients, past presidents from this association that have taken and sold property here and bought in other areas, and they have rocked it, and they're doing phenomenally well with it. So it's,
And the key to this is, not only did we create some inventory here in our market, but you've created wealth for your sellers. You've created residual income for your sellers. And it really, you need to become an expert in how they're going to be doing business and where they're going to be doing business in other states. Have a strategic partner for a referral fee. Work through those angles on the things that you don't know, but keep your client building wealth and building residual income.
and you need to be a master at the 1031 exchange.
Oh,
I
such a
have
nice transition.
done a
know.
lot of 1031 exchanges, and I will tell you, Ron is my guy. I call him all hours a day and night from time to time when you have these things that come up. So I will tell you, there's probably not a better person that I know of in this industry that can help you help your clients with 1031 stuff. So it did digress into that really well.
All right. So speaking of 1031s, one of the things that you guys will encounter is, hey, I can't sell because there's nowhere to go, right? So, on these rental properties, they don't have to have somewhere to go except with that investment. They don't have to find a place to live. And there's more opportunity for that type of investment. And having the 1031 as part of our presentation today is critical, because you have to be experts on this part and the tax ramifications if you do sell a rental and you do walk away with $3 million. So take it away.
Thank you. For those of you I've not had a chance to meet yet, Ron Ricard, IPX, been doing this about 20 years, which I know compared to you is not nearly long enough, but and there are a couple of things that have been said so far I do want to echo. The first one is what Myra said about owning investment real estate yourself. Okay, I would never go to somebody as a professional if they didn't practice what they preached. And I think for you as agents, it is a really good idea. Even if you own a $100,000 condo in Stockton, I don't care. Just own some investment real estate yourself so that when you are talking to other investors, you have your base of, yes, I'm an investor also. So I do highly encourage that. All right. So what I'm going to do real briefly is go through some of the basic 1031, the steps of the 1031, just because there are a lot of misunderstandings how and that your clients are going to have. So as you all probably know, 1031 is what allows you to sell investment real estate, buy replacement investment real estate, and get to defer the taxes. So you have a rental duplex in Sunnyvale, you want to sell that, go to North Carolina, buy a 10-unit apartment building. You're selling investment real estate, you're buying investment real estate. That's the 1031 exchange.
And the 1031 is a code for the IRS?
Is the section is the section of the tax code. Exactly. Now, one thing to remember also is real estate is the only asset that you can sell at a profit and not have to pay the tax man. Everything else you own, stocks, your art collection, anything else you own that even if you go buy another piece of art, another stock, another mutual fund, doesn't matter. You're still going to pay tax on the sale of that asset. Real estate, you don't. Real estate, we have this magical part of the tax code that allows you to sell it. And as long as you put the money into another piece of investment real estate, you are deferring your taxes. All right. Now, a very common misunderstanding is the term like kind. Like kind is any kind of investment real estate for any other kind of investment real estate. And what's really common around here, we're talking about that house in Camel worth $3.5 million. Well, most people don't want to go to North Carolina and buy a $3.5 million house, but they will go there and buy a 30-unit apartment building. They will go to Florida and buy a shopping center. They will go to places and buy larger assets. And then you can do that in the 1031. It's any investment real estate. So you can sell residential and buy commercial, buy farmland, buy mineral rights, buy conservation easements. All of that is considered to be like kind, also anywhere in the country. Sell in California, buy in another state, you're still deferring both state and federal taxes. So there's a huge advantage to it. It's much more flexible than you think in terms of what you can buy in replacement.
Am I the right one?
Next one, yeah.
Next.
All right. Next thing, actually do one more click. One more thing in the 1031 is the timeline. You got to know what you're going to buy within 45 days and close with it on 180. A lot of people are very much afraid of that 45-day clock, especially in the market today. Mind you, I think things are slowing down a little bit with interest rates going up, but there's still the fear of not finding a replacement property in the 45 days. Here is where you as the agent are going to come in. That 45-day clock starts at the close of escrow. Ask for longer escrows. Okay. It scares the hell out of me when I see somebody, I get a new contract to set up an exchange and it's a 10-day close. I go, have you already found your replacement property? No. Then why the hell did you agree to a 10-day close? Ask for a 45-day escrow. Ask for a 60-day escrow. My favorite contract I ever saw was one in Palo Alto, a 30-day escrow with 3 options to extend it up to 30 days. Okay. The longer before escrow closes, the longer before the clock starts. And it is perfectly okay to be in contract when you're to buy the one before you sell yours. There's also something called a reverse exchange. I'm not going to get into that, but the key is you can work with that timing. Okay. So make sure you talk to the client about how long they want to buy their next property.
And be prepared. I mean, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
You're helping them build wealth. You're helping them build residual income. You need to know what type of investments they're into, as well as the cap rate and what their return on investment is going to be.
And I'll just add a little bit. So on that exchange that I used as the example of my place, the buyer of my property wasn't all cash. He wanted to close in 15 days. We changed it and I changed it. I said, it's going to be a 90-day escrow, but we'll close within 15 days of me saying I'm ready to close. So I used the escrow time to go out and identify and tie up those 5 properties. Then I closed, and then I was able to close on all 5 of those properties. So the timing of it is important. Understanding that and exactly what you talked about, that's where we come in as the professionals and understanding how this works, how we can help our clients succeed at taking $3.8 million and rolling it into a new investment. Because you go to some of these other areas, North Carolina would be a good example. To find $3.8 million worth of property is not an easy thing to do, not because it's not there, because it's a lot of properties. I mean, an average house in North Carolina is 300 grand. So you're going to go out and buy 10 houses, it's like, it's a big deal. So,
It could be part of a city block that you
Yeah.
now own.
well, I did sell a whole street just this year. We just closed on a whole street, Hope Court,
Yeah.
of all duplexes.
All right. The last thing to make sure your client understands is that they do need to reinvest everything in the next property, equal or greater to what you sell the property for. It's not the profit, it's not the equity, it's everything. One of the things that people are trying to do often when they go to places, markets like North Carolina and Tennessee and Florida, is I see a lot of clients also try to leverage the prop money they have. So they sell a $1 million property, maybe it has a very small loan on it, but they got $1 million of equity, let's say, coming out, and they want to leverage that into more properties. That's perfectly okay. You can buy up as much as you want. If you buy down, you pay tax on the difference. But one thing to be careful about is you don't want to get too big of a loan. If you get too big of a loan and have cash left over, you pay tax on that cash. So do be careful that the client is matching the equity that's coming out of what they sell, because all that equity has to go into buying the next property also.
So if I could just ask on that, so they have a $200,000 mortgage on this $1 million property. Do they have to mortgage at 200,000 again or less?
They need, if they sell for $1 million and have a $200,000 mortgage, the key is they need to buy something for at least $1 million. So they need to replace that $200,000 in debt. Most people are going to get another loan, but technically you don't have to. If you have cash yourself, or you can get owner financing or something like that, you can make up the debt that way. So as long as you make up that difference, you need to replace the value of the debt.
So in other words, if you have $800,000 in equity and that's all you use to do your 1031, you're going to have a tax consequence.
That's correct. Exactly.
200 grand.
All right. Now, the next part of the slide, next slide is really the critical part for what I want to talk to you about. You do not do 1031 exchanges to defer taxes. Okay. Go next slide. The reason you do exchanges is because you want to buy something better. Now, what does better mean? Better means whatever the hell the client wants it to mean. Okay. Right now, I am doing record number of exchanges. Last year, I did more exchanges, almost double the number of exchanges that I've ever done in any of my 20 years in the past. Okay. Just an amazing year. This year, it's starting out just as fast. It is starting to slow down. We are seeing those trickles, but the key is people are doing exchanges right now. But the key is, when you talk to somebody who owns a piece of investment real estate, what you want to ask them is not, do you want to defer taxes? Everybody wants to defer taxes. What you want to ask them is, what is a better property for you tomorrow than what you own today? And if they've owned an investment property for more than 10 years, I guarantee you with 95% accuracy that they will want to buy something different. 10 years seems to be that mark where people get tired of what they have and they want something more. So what do they want? Well, a lot of people, cash flow. Right now, that's a huge thing, especially in the Bay Area. I think we've all kind of alluded to this, but depending where you are in the Bay Area, in the last 2 years, your property value has gone up anywhere from 25 to 50%. Rents have not. So you have these properties that have appreciated. Your rents are still kind of where they were before. So as a return on asset, that is not a good amount of return. So a lot of people are looking for a better cash flow, whether it's multiple units, whether it's good to go buy in different markets, whatever. So that's a big part of it. We are also hearing about a lot of people that are moving out of California or wanting to move out of California. So another big play we are seeing is people doing exchanges to markets where they eventually want to go live in themselves. So if I want to go if I want to go retire in North Carolina, well, maybe right now I am going to go to do an exchange to buy not a $300,000 house, but maybe an $800,000 house, which is a mansion in North Carolina. And after renting it for a few years, then I'll retire and move to North Carolina or to Hawaii. Much more Hawaii than North Carolina. But the key is you're doing the exchange into a property that ultimately you're going to turn into your residence after you've been renting it for a few years. Maybe, and I think you alluded to this, TJ, you're dealing with people who are dealing with people who've already moved out of state. They're already living in Arizona or living in Texas. In fact, just today, on my way down here, I was talking to somebody who lives in Texas and they own a place in Tahoe. Well, guess what? They don't go there anymore. And after they've been renting it, after they moved to Texas, they started renting it out. Well, now they realize, you know what? I could take that Tahoe property, go to Texas and buy 4 or 5 properties and make more cash flow. So the idea of moving to going to areas where, moving to properties to where they currently live, they're probably going to get better cash flow out of it. If you deal with people who are senior citizens, they're probably looking for something that's easier to manage. Okay, your client there in Campbell with a $3.5 million property, all cash. Guess what they're going to buy? They're not going to buy duplexes. They're going to buy a Safeway. They're going to buy a Starbucks. They're going to buy a Jiffy Lube. They're going to buy what's called triple net commercial real estate. Easier to manage, easy to qualify for the loan because it's a commercial loan. And most importantly, they don't have to get up in the middle of the night to unclog the toilets. Okay, so people are looking for property that's easier to manage. Sometimes you're going to deal with people who are in their 80s and 90s who are using the 1031 for estate planning tools. As estate plan. Now, again, the key here is when you're talking to investors, you're talking to them about what do you want out of your real estate. 1031 is a tool that allows you to get what you own today to what you want to own tomorrow. And it's a very powerful tool. All right, one last on the next slide. I do want to point out, I know that we're probably going to be talking a little bit about marketing, and I know you spoke a little bit about marketing earlier. I own real estate in multiple states. I get postcards and letters virtually every single day, and most of the postcards and letters I receive are garbage. I just sold the house down the street. I don't care. I want to sell your house. Yes, so does everybody else. Here's a banana bread recipe. I really don't care. Okay, but if I get a postcard that says, "Hey, your cash flow is about to take a hit," excuse me. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for a message that means something to me. So when you're farming, obviously you always want to separate the owner occupied from the non-owner occupied. But even within non-owner occupied, find a message that's important to them. For example, the client who lives in Texas, find out-of-state owners. You have a message to them. Bring the money close to home. You're going to make better cash flow, and it's easier to manage. Maybe you're dealing with somebody. Maybe you want to farm an area that is a condo complex with really high HOA. I'm hearing this a lot from people these days. If you're living there, that's great, but having a rental and you're paying a ton of money as HOA, that sucks. Farm the non-owner occupies in that condo complex. Again, the key here is the more targeted you could do your farming, the more likely they are to apply to your postcard, your letter, whatever you're going to send to them. And I know that as the title companies are great to help you that, if you want to go into some pay versions of the farming, that you can get stuff even more targeted. But I'm a big fan of focusing your farm on a smaller group of people that are more likely to reply to you rather than just a blanket generic amount of postcards and letters that 99% of them are going to get thrown away. So
I think that's very valid. And so in what we've talked about, finding out-of-state investors who own property in the Bay Area is a great target market because the hassle of actually managing properties here, the rules that we have with properties here, and the rent moratoriums and the eviction moratoriums and some of the hassles they've had to do with probably cause a little bit of heartburn. So that's a really nice target market. As you select what you're trying to do, I think that would probably be one of your segments, as well as the segments of the local investor who has these properties and may want to do exactly what he talked about for financial planning. Maybe he has 4 kids, but he only has 2 rental properties. It may make a lot more sense to sell 2 of those and put them into a 1031 exchange so that he ends up with 4 properties that they can all inherit directly, keep some property tax the same, and then you don't have to deal with those types of issues as well on that type of thing. Yes, Jaime. Do you want a microphone so our people in the audience can hear? Can I borrow a microphone? Oh, thanks, Dan. Come on down.
Thanks for the presentation, guys. Appreciate it. A lot of information, great stuff here. There's a concern about the 1031, right? And identifying the property and all that. It's great to go ahead and extend the closing date. Good idea. However, if they're going to buy here in California, especially locally, you still may not be able to land the property because this market is tough. right? Buying a property here, even with the slowdown today, you still, you may not, you may not be competing with 10 people, you're competing with 5 still, right? So,
So
That
lost
be-
your point.
so that being the case, you can go to the Central Valley. You don't have to go out of state, just to your point.
Absolutely.
But in my case, I guess, could you, and you didn't want to mention it, but I'm going to mention it for you, the reverse 1031 exchange, So in order to, you want to land a particular property you want, can you or should you consider buying the property first, okay? And because you can make sure and not have a failed 1031 without the 4 to 5 days, buy the property first, right? And then do the 1031 exchange after that. Now, can you expand on that? Can you talk about that?
Okay, I will, because right now I will say we are doing record numbers of reverse exchanges also. No, the first thing to realize about a reverse exchange is you can't buy it. If you buy that property, you now own both. You can't do an exchange into a property if you already own it. So we have to be involved before you buy the property as part of what we call a reverse exchange. And the reverse exchange in general is exactly what you're saying. You're buying first and then selling yours. The key here is it's a little bit more expensive of a transaction, but around here we're talking multi-million-dollar properties. It's not that big of a deal. But the key is having the funds to buy it. Because most conventional lenders are not going to lend you the money and allow us to be on title to the property, which is what happens in a reverse exchange. So it's having the funds, having access to the funds to be able to do it. That's where most people, a reverse exchange doesn't work. But if you have the funds to be able to buy the property or tie up that property, yes, a reverse exchange is a good option. And then, like I said, right now we're doing record numbers of them. And for exactly that reason, I'm looking for a very specific property in a very specific market. And I know I can sell mine like that. Why? So I prefer to be able to lock this property down and then worry about selling mine. So yes, it's something we are doing a lot of right now. We take title to the property in an LLC that we create. So it's Myron. It's an LLC that we own. That once they've sold their property, we then just give the property to Myron or whoever the client's going to be at that point. But yeah, we create a separate tax entity that we control that takes title to that property until you sold your property.
So those types of mortgages are normally going to be either a hard money or a commercial purchase, depending on the property itself and what the function is going to be out of. And since most commercial loans will let it be lent in an LLC, you usually don't have a problem. But like he's saying, it's best you have the cash so that you are purchasing that property and they just move it right over. The mortgages are harder to secure, and you do have to have a very, very large down payment on any of those programs.
Yeah, there are most people who don't have the cash themselves, or they access it through like a equity line against their primary residence or other assets they have. Hard money is very common. There are a couple of portfolio lenders who will do it, who I can put you in contact with, but the vast majority of, and no conventional lender is going to do that, because the conventional lenders are not going to allow the LLC to be on title to that property. So the financing really is the trickiest part of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a non-QM product. It's not going to be your Fannie, Freddie, conventional, that type of thing.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
TJ, I just want to mention, when it comes to farming, you may consider homeowners that own multiple properties as well. That's something you may want to look into. And we have a lot of tools and programs that offer value. So, I just wanted to mention that.
And absolutely. And you'll see when you're pulling up these title lists and the information that they provide is very detailed. You're going to see that a lot of them are currently held in an LLC. You're going to see that these people probably have been around the block a little bit, so they may know a little bit more than you do. So get educated, have some strategic partners, know what their hot buttons might be just by the types of properties that they have. Go ahead, Marvin.
I'm going to speak back on what you brought up. There's a lot of varieties and a lot of solutions to try to help your clients in the situation like you just identified. Most of them are higher net worth individuals. And if they don't already have a private banker relationship, you should know some good private bankers out there that you can refer your clients to, because there are private bankers, and First Republic is one that comes to mind. I do a lot of business with them myself. I've referred them to a lot of my high net worth clients. They will do loans like that to facilitate their client in their 1031 reverse exchange. So they're not selling the paper off. They're doing it because of the relationship they have with their client. So a banking relationship for those types of things, and the more complex you get, becomes a real vital, important tool for you to have and to help your clients with, so that you can succeed in the outcome. They're very flexible with their high net worth clients. So I've had a client, very high net worth guy, I won't get into all too much, but he wanted to buy a commercial building, walked into his private banker. So at this point, this is quite a few years back, it was a $2 million building. And he didn't want to touch all this stuff. Guy, first time I really was experienced with like what private bankers really do. Walks down in and says, "Hey, Mark, I need to do this. I want to do this. This is my broker. He wants to sell me this building." And then after a few funds we have with, he says, "You know what? I'll just have the check for you this afternoon." That's what a private banker can do.
Now, what you're going to see as the interest rates go up and as the market condenses a little bit, you're going to see a little bit less of the services that the private bankers have been able to provide in the past. But a lot of them have shut down their departments, Bank of America being one, for their private banking clients. But they are out there, and they do provide that niche being met.
Yes.
So again, strategic alliance, get the education. Know what your client needs and be able to provide that service for them so they can be a client for life. Any other questions? Did you find the information useful? All right. So do you guys have a huge list of things you need to do now? I hope so, because there is so much equity in cash in this valley that people haven't tapped because of our rapid appreciation, that they could have so much more wealth and residual income, and we can free up that inventory, especially for those of us who love that first-time home buyer, and we want to get them into that condo. We want to get them into that townhouse. We want to get them into that smaller property. And those are kind of a hassle to manage for those people who are out of state, or those people who don't like the big HOAs. So that'd be a great target market, especially in an area. If you're a Campbell expert, like there's a couple of us who love Campbell. If you're a Campbell expert, how many condo departments over there are condo properties are rentals? And how could we get that inventory, which is profitable and key? And it's, again, another part of the market. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing that you're thinking to yourself, well, it's kind of hard to find non-owner occupied. Depending on how you look at it, between 22 to 24% of all the properties in Santa Clara County are non-owner occupied. There's a hell of a lot more out there than you think there is. So it's not like, every city has a couple. No, there are hundreds and thousands in every single city in the South Bay.
And he provides a very valid point. Do something different with that investor. Make sure you do something that will stand out, will provide a value to them. And that's why we're recommending having the ability to do a review of the property for your out-of-state investors. Do it and have it cleaned up and provide that service to build that long-term relationship. Oh, okay. Yeah. You want to field them for me? You want a microphone? All right. Jaime has a question real quick, and then we'll start with the ones on Zoom. Go ahead, Jaime.
There also is an aspect here locally and statewide with rent control, right? And tenant protections and stuff like that. It's really getting pretty intense here. Using that as a reason is good to have a conversation with the owners, because they may not want to deal with that anymore.
Exactly.
But you also got to remember, at some point along the line, it's going to happen at the other place too. Like maybe even in Raleigh, do they have rent control and tenant protection there?
No rent control. No, it's in fact, Raleigh's a unique market. I'm sure there's other ones too, but seller disclosures are really interesting. When we're used to, in our area, for a seller disclosure, when a property's sold, you have 15 pages of telling you everything, whether you had cats in the house or whatever. In Raleigh, it's a 1.5 page document, and it has 3 options for the seller to answer: yes, no, and decline to answer. What do you think most sellers do? They don't answer any questions. So Very
All
different
right,
state,
we
very
have
different.
some questions from Zoom.
Hi,
Hi,
Shakira,
can
if you like, oh yeah,
I-
go
yes.
ahead.
Hi, good morning. It's very good presentation. I'm not a new realtor. However, I've learned lots of new information today, especially regarding the 1031 exchange. Regarding the 45 days, usually your clients panic. Anyway, I have my buyers or my clients purchase new construction. Of course, they're not ready because of the delay in, appliances and stuff. So we don't really know when it's going to be completed. But my clients have a house to sell, which is about $2 million. So what should I do? Should I delay the new construction closing? But that will depend on the builder, right?
So the first question is that property an income producing property that they're trying to sell, or is that their primary residence?
Their primary residence.
So a primary residence is not going to be eligible for a 1031 exchange, as that's a commercial product for like properties that are money-making properties.
No, what I
Nobody's-
my question is, will they be able to close on the property that they have purchased and moved in, and then put their current resident on the market? Will they be taxed as capital gains? Because
No, because as long as it's your primary residence, you can buy and sell your primary residence anytime. Because 25 years ago, we changed the law. 25 years ago, when you sold your house, you had to go buy another house. That's gone. Now, when you sell your primary residence, it doesn't matter whether you buy another primary residence or not. So if they want to go buy this new construction and then list their property, that's perfectly okay, because there is the tax implications of selling their current primary residence are not going to change either way. They're going to get the $250,000 or $500,000 exclusion, and that's pretty much it. So timing wise, when it comes to the primary residence, you can buy and sell or buy the new one whenever you want.
and then close on the new one and then put the house on the market. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's not eligible for a 1031 exchange just because it's not that type of property. However, you're going to have the regular taxation no matter which order you do it in.
Correct.
Another comment on that?
No, that's absolutely correct. They get their cost basis, plus if they're married, they get $500,000. If they're single, they get $250,000 on top of the cost basis. That's the tax-free part. Any gain above that, you're going to pay your capital gains tax, and there's no way to get around that.
Yeah,
for the board.
and what does the capital gains tax usually run, or is it a scale based on everything else that you have going on?
So selling in California, the capital gains rate for most people will vary between 25 and 35% between state and federal. I mean, theoretically, if we're talking multi-million-dollar gains, then it could be as high as 38%, but 25 to 35 for most people.
Can you explain one of the things I get asked all the time, if they're going to participate and they want to defer it, or they want to move it forward and not have that capital gains? Is there a length of time that property has to be an investment? They decide they're going to go ahead and rent in another city, turn it into an investment for a period of time and then do it? What would you recommend?
Actually, this is good. Actually, it'll go into a thing you and I were talking about before. You need to buy the property with the intention of it being an investment. And unfortunately, that's a very vague term. And how long you have to treat it that way is something that we do not have any clear guidance from the tax code nor the IRS. So it is a question that you as real estate agents should never answer. Please do not ever tell a client, oh, you can move in after a year or 2 years or whatever. You are not their accountant. This is not something that you can pull from the tax code. So they should be getting this answer from their own tax advisor, please. Most accountants, though, are going to recommend that they rent the property at least a couple of years before they change the use of the property. Now, Myra and I were talking ahead of time before the meeting today that he has a client who bought a property and 4 months later just got this unsolicited offer to sell it at a very huge premium. Can they do an exchange? My argument would be probably yes, because they bought the property with the intention of it being an investment. Did something happen that was unexpected? In this case, an unsolicited offer? Probably. So as long as they, the key there is you have to keep the information, you have to keep that letter that you got, you have to keep the, some backup material that shows if you do get audited, that you can justify why you did this transaction. And my accountant would, when this happened to me, would add also the next one you buy, definitely hold that one 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
'Cause
no red flags.
You're right, exactly. Because the one area we didn't touch upon is that flipping real estate does not qualify for 1031. And that's what it looks like. If you buy something, fix it up and sell it, doesn't look like it's it's not an investment. Similarly, you buy it 3 months later after you kick the 10 out and move in yourself, you probably didn't really buy it with the intention really of being an investment. So again, that's how long they need to rent the property for. They should be discussing with their own tax professional.
That's great advice. We don't want to advise on anything we're not experts on. Do you have another question, Steve? Nope. All right. Question in the back, go ahead.
There's been tragedies, there's been force majeure, whatever the case may be. So they're just afraid to make that move, although they stand on tons of cash on their property. But what would you tell them, or perhaps some of the self-talk you had to go through? Because you obviously been doing this for like 40, I don't know how many years. So probably 10,000 is a home. So you feel very comfortable with it. With somebody starting out, perhaps a junior investor who wants to make that leap of faith, what would you start them off with?
I will tell you, I've made a lot of mistakes in investing, but I've never made a mistake in investing in real estate. And I mean that sincerely. Every real estate purchase I've made has always benefited me in one form or another. I had one that I would choose not to do again. It's when I learned not to buy in areas that I wouldn't want to live in myself, but I still made a lot of money on that transaction. So all the heartaches aside, investing in real estate for me is like a no-brainer. So I am clearly not afraid of it at all. But one of the best things you can do for your client is to show them on paper. So there's a website out there, you guys may have heard about it or not. It's called BiggerPockets, biggerpockets.com for investors. It also has a tool there for real estate brokers. You can subscribe to it. You can create phenomenally great reports that will calculate the cap rates and the cash on cash return, all of those things for your client's current investments. And you can show them what it would be on a future investment. And you can give that to them in a 2 to 3 page presentation that's all about the numbers, right? It's here's what you're doing. Your current asset today is performing at X. If we take and we repurpose this into another marketplace, well, you could even do it here, but here the problem here is in the Bay Area, the cap rates are 2%, guys. That's losing money, right? It's below inflation. You're not making money buying stuff at a 2 cap. And so in that regard, there's other places you can go. So I would take, and it's really about really kind of helping educate them a little bit and informing them. But if they already own real estate, I'm going to tell you what they've experienced in real estate here is happening everywhere else or almost everywhere else. Now, there are things you should be aware of, right? Some markets and some economies have different things. I'll give you an example. Idaho everybody's talked about Idaho a lot lately. It's a great place to go. I would stay out of Idaho as an investment personally. What's in Idaho other than Californians moving there? Right? There's really nothing there. I mean, it's a beautiful, my son goes to school there. It's a great little college. They cater to all the kids. They deliver beer cakes to their house. They got a whole business for that. But I don't think that's making a lot of money and hiring a lot of employing a lot of people, a lot of farmland, a lot of that stuff. I'm not dissing Idaho as a state. It's probably a great place to go and to live. I just don't think as an investment, you're going to see a great return on that investment down the road. I think there's places like, look at what's happening in Nashville. There was talk a year or so ago about the New York Stock Exchange relocating to Nashville. The New York Stock Exchange employs over 100,000 people. Okay, if you're in a market and 100,000 people come moving in because they move from New York to Nashville, you're probably going to benefit highly from a lot of appreciation that happens as a result of that. Simple little number. When you see an area and there's Apple's opening up a new facility, or like in Durham, Google's putting a new, their Sky, whatever, their cloud engineering division is opening up in downtown Durham, 1,000 employees. What you have to understand is for every 1,000 employees that come into an area, they need 500 to 600 new homes. If they don't currently have that, it's going to create a shortage. What does shortages do? It causes appreciation to rise, which is what we're seeing happening in all of these areas that haven't seen it historically before. And the pandemic just fast forwarded all that. There was already a migration, a slow migration from places like New York, Pennsylvania, California, and other areas to other places. You know, companies were opening up in places and they were going different places. The pandemic put that on steroids and fast forwarded us 15 years into the future with what companies are doing and where they're going and how they're going to operate in the future. And so quality of life, the quality of life thing is a big deal for companies, right? A family can go to North Carolina, as an example. They can buy a $450,000 home, which here would be about a $2.5 million home if you can find exactly what it was. And I'll give you just an example. My home I bought in North Carolina 3 years ago, I paid $544,000 for it. It was a lot of money in North Carolina back when I bought that. That house is on a half-acre of land on the 17th fairway of a private golf course. It's 3,200 square feet with a 2,200 square foot walkout basement for $544,000. Folks, I couldn't find that in California here, okay? If I did, it's $6 million, okay? So the quality of life aspect of things for people, when you see what they can do, if we get outside of our shell, you know, and 10 years ago, 7 years ago, I would have never been talking like this. I love California and I still love California. California is a great, great state. It's a great place. We've been very fortunate to be here and to have our lives here. But I'll tell you, if we pull our heads out of the shell a little bit, go for a drive, take a trip, go look at some of the, there are some really great cities in the United States of America that are better than here.
Now, I don't know if they'll have our weather, but that's my opinion.
Well,
That's kind of
when you're-
my holdback. But along that lines, get to know an area. The more you can be their source, the better you can have them develop forward whatever their financial plan is. So be their resource, have strategic partners. If there's a certain state they're interested in, find a referral for that, an agent in that state who can tell you that, oh, that's not a town you really want to invest in. But if you went over here on this side of the mountain, it's much better. On this side of the freeway, it's much better. Have a local expert. You guys are realtors. You have a network. Definitely use it and you'll still make money and you can still provide a great service and keep a client for life. I mean, do you have a question?
Just to piggyback on your comment, Intel in Santa Clara, they're building a multi-billion-dollar chip manufacturing facility in Iowa. So that broke the news earlier last year.
And we're going to see more of that with
So-
what's going on internationally as we are going to become a bit more industrial. When we were farming those things out of the United States, now we have the areas where we can put those warehouses. We have the industrial areas where we can build, and those will be those driving markets where they're going to need housing, where they're going to need real estate agents and professionals like you guys. So being aware of the fact that those things are pulling back instead of outsourcing, you're not going to outsource because the cost, you can't get the product to market. We've got all these delays going on with all of those pieces. They're doing it here. And we have big people. I think Tesla's talking about Texas, I heard recently. So we see people moving all over the place. Be well aware and meet their needs so that they can have that residual income.
The other thing, so if you go back to that slide I had where I had those definitions, all of you need to know those, right? The power of a cap rate. The cap rate is a great multiplier that you can use to calculate the value and the asset that they have today at any point in time. That's the beauty of a cap rate. So it tells you, you may have bought something with a really great cap rate 5 years ago, but because of what we were talking about earlier, appreciation went up, rents didn't go quite so much. That cap rate on that investment might be down to a 2 or a 3, right? So when you see that kind of a difference on that, and you can take that asset and turn it from a 3 cap to a 7 or an 8 cap, you've tripled or doubled their income, which again, what most people are, I'm finding, what most people today, maybe because of my age group or whatnot, but what most people are wanting that I talk to is they want cash flow now. They don't really care as much about the appreciation aspect of, although appreciation is now a part in almost every market in the country, what's going on, but that cash flow is a big thing. So you can really find that.
Hi, it's Jody with SCORE.
Hey,
Um,
Jody.
Sneak peek, June 21st at SCORE, we will have two people coming in talking about how to underwrite multifamily. And they're going to talk about gross rate multipliers. They're going to talk about cap rates and how to properly do it, because I think it kind of builds into this, where if you're selling maybe single family to go into multifamily or vice versa or whatever, you need to understand those multi-unit deals, because they're way different if you've got renters. And so June 21st, watch out for that on the calendar.
And I'd like to thank the panel. I think that the discussion was lively. I loved all of you guys being here, but I think we all provide some support to you guys to be able to enter this market like experts and use these tools. We'll be able to give you the PowerPoints. You can reach all of us pretty easily and ask questions. Don't forget tonight.
Well, I was going to ask really quickly for those, and then tonight, for those of you that are on Zoom, I don't think, Steve, we had any questions come in on Zoom, but for those on Zoom, did you have questions? Do you have comments? Do you have anything like that? Feel free to unmute yourself, ask a question, throw it in the chat box, and Steve can ask that. So I'll give you guys a
Oh, we
couple
got one more
minutes.
question in the
Oh, we-
back.
We have it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I think it'd be tragic not to ask this question with all the wealth of information and experience that we got there. Drawing on your past experience, perhaps your crystal ball that fell off your table this morning. Perhaps you can share a quick snippet or a minute or two what the way you see the market. This talks about interest rates going up, increasing inventory. Perhaps you alluded to maybe perhaps
All right,
shifting
so
market.
we'll
So
start
from the lender side or title, especially the handsome gentleman in a suit there, I forgot his name. I think it rhymes with Captain Picard or something.
So 3 questions for you. Where are interest rates going? What's going to happen with our market on our sales? And what do you think we're looking at in the next 4 or 5 years?
Okay, in January, I told people back then, I said, I saw interest rates at the end of this year being 6.5, maybe between 6.5 to 7% by the end of the year. Everybody thought I was nuts. They said, oh, no, never gonna happen. I'm still sticking with that. I think by the, probably by November-ish timeframe, you're gonna see our interest rates at 6.25, 6.5 all day long, everywhere. The Fed has nowhere to go but up in order to stop and try to curb the inflation that's happening right now. So I see interest rates continue to rise. I think they'll continue to rise into next year as well. I think if you got clients that are looking to finance stuff, it's not going to get better than it is today. That's what I will tell you from a financial perspective. From a market perspective, I think interest rates, inflation, and other economic factors that are happening out there, I think that's going to slow our market down. I don't think our market's going to crash and burn. I don't think we're going to see it go to, all of a sudden people are taking 30, 40% less on their property. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the multiple offers are going to go away or be very small in numbers, maybe 1 or 2 offers on properties instead of the 15 or 20 that we've been used to seeing. I don't think that's a bad market. I actually think that's a balanced market. It becomes a little more balanced, a little more stable for both buyers and sellers. I think this craziness, it upsets a lot of people. I get buyers that win and they're still pissed off. So, and what was the third
5
one?
years down the line.
5 years down the line, I think real estate's the place to be. I think if you don't get in it now, you're going to wish you did. What's going to happen is that, there's a saying, if I only knew then what I know now. So I will tell you, with what we know now, there's other places that we can go to that are like it was back then. So look for those places, find those places, invest in those places. You're going to be very grateful and thankful that you did, and you're going to be able to retire at a much younger time frame and play in real estate if you want, instead of making it the whole way of your life.
Yeah, look at that residual income as some of us get older, not me, but everybody else who gets older. That residual income is something you want to do, especially as you're saying, okay, well, if there's only this much inventory, we only can close this many, how much money can I make? What if I have that residual income coming in? So think about all of those things for livelihood. What do you think, dear?
What I think is presently, this is a great time for you to be learning, to be using the programs and tools that are available to you. Take a deeper dive into some of the farming programs. It's like anything else. You may want to shift gears a little bit, but if you just don't give up and keep on doing, what you should be doing, the market is going to be fabulous.
Yeah, make your own market.
I have no idea whatsoever where interest rates are going to go, so I'm not even going to begin to guess on that one. But with regard to where I see the market going, there's going to be a moderation. There's no question. We're not going to see 30, 40% increases, not with interest rates going up. And in a way, I think this is actually very much needed. We have been on the upswing since 2013. We've had a 9-year run. Okay. Typically runs last 4, 5, 7 years at tops. This has been pretty special. So having some moderation, I don't think we're going to, this is not 2008 again. Okay. We're not going to see a huge plunge in the market, but we are going to see some moderation. That said, there is still a hell of a lot of money out there. Okay. And most transactions that are over $3 million, guess what? They don't care what the interest rates are. Why? They ain't getting a loan. Okay. I'm doing a lot of exchanges right now, all cash transactions. And guess what? Those properties are still in very high demand, and there's a lot of money out there. The people who are suffering from inflation because of the inflation, people who are suffering because of high interest rates, those are the people that, yeah, they will not be able to afford that $800,000 house in Campbell anymore, if there is one, because they have to get that big loan to do it. But the higher end properties, the commercial properties, I don't see those changing nearly as fast because there's still a lot of money in this valley.
All right, Daryl, since everybody calls you when they're ready to sell, what do you think?
Well, I look at the tour sheets every single day from SCORE, from SOFR, et cetera. And I'm seeing a lot less action at the very high end right now, but I see a lot of fast action on the lower end. So I think that a lot of homes that are under 1.5 million are going fast, and the homes that are 3 to 5 millions are sticking on the market a lot longer than they were, last year. And I agree with Myron as to where the interest rates are going. Okay.
Thank you so much. And so for those of you who don't know, I am a lender and I've been doing it for a couple days, like 35 years. And so the market is in a correction. It needs it. But it's not stable. And so we don't have par pricing out there. And yet we have a conforming loan limit that is almost $1 million in a high cost area, which to me, it was 135,000 when I started. It's kind of crazy. So right now, what I tell clients is if you can now be one of the 2 people who qualifies for this home, buy it. Who cares what the interest rate is? You can afford the payment. It's cheaper than your rent. You can afford the payment. You're getting a house, and you can build your equity over time, whether it appreciates twofold like it has crazily before, or even standard appreciation. You're paying principal. You have your piece of the rock. So interest rates are not nearly as important. They are going to go down when we hit our big R word, because everything's cyclical, and we will have one of those recessions coming up, and we need to. It's a little bit of a correction. The recession won't happen until our unemployment numbers increase. We're the vultures of the financial world, right? We're looking for bad news so that we can stimulate the economy, so that we make everybody happy.